This video will highlight some of the key new features since the last minor release of version 25 of Archibus. So those who are on one of the version 26 releases might see some features that they're familiar with, but maybe haven't adopted. Overall, this is going to touch on some of the key highlights. This certainly isn't everything that is new since the last version 25 release. One of the things that has changed since version 25, version 26 is a year-based versioning system. So version 2022, version 2023, with minor releases quarterly as well. So if I reference those version numbers or year numbers, that'll make a little more sense that way. Overall, there's been some great improvements, some great new features that we're going to look at. But alongside that, stability improvements, performance improvements, and improvements to key processes as well to make things more efficient, as well as working within the ecosystem, connectivity to other Aptera products, and other pieces that you might have within your overall facilities and software ecosystem. There have been a number of improvements across the platform, Archibus as a whole, not focused in on any functional area. One of the great ones that we've seen is the process to achieve FedRAMP approval status, which is a US government security standard that Archibus is pursuing and has been progressing along, which gives overall security and stability, very high standards. And of course, everyone who uses Archibus can benefit from these things because it's part of the product itself. Archibus has now achieved in-process status, meaning that they have a sponsor and they have completed a number of steps, some verifications, some audits, and have received the approval that they need. Aptera continues to prioritize accessibility. Annual voluntary product assessments incorporate the latest WCAG components. Another great piece that's been added to Archibus that helps across the board is the Report Central ad hoc reporting tool in business intelligence. For those who are familiar with the Smart Client reporting utilities, this takes a similar approach, providing you the data and allowing you to work with it, but it's accessible in Web Central and it's a little bit more flexible to take visual approaches to your charts and analysis with your data. So there's a lot of value here. Examples of some reports that you can put together using some of your data are things like understanding when lease options are expiring or how many lease options you have expiring over a period of time. So to create this, I pulled in lease information. I filtered it down based on the fields that were important to me, primarily option-related fields. And then I created a chart based on some grouping of the date and count of the option code. So just in a few clicks, I was able to pull out the analysis that I needed. So if you're familiar with Power BI, other business intelligence tools, this will really help to answer quick questions that you have. These reports can also be shared within your organization. So if you have one person who has the expertise with your Archibus data, but you want to make this accessible to others, you can do that as well. One of the areas of Archibus that's seen significant investment improvement over the past few years is the workplace interface, which provides services and facilities information to end users so that they can help themselves in an accessible interface. A great new feature that's been added is the Outlook Web or Office 365 plugin version of the Archibus Room Finder. So for users who don't use desktop Outlook, maybe they're primarily on mobile or using the web interface, they can still leverage Archibus information that holds details about spaces that might be able to be used for meetings, locations that might be able to be used within the Outlook interface while they're booking that meeting. So on the screen here, you can see a meeting that I'm reviewing that I've pulled in Archibus information. So I can actually search through my Archibus locations and get information about some of the meeting locations that I could choose, pull that into Outlook and make my booking accordingly. The workplace interface itself has undergone continuous improvement. The accessibility front is extremely important, as this is the largest population base that you'll see for anyone using Archibus. Your end users will all likely use this. So that has continued to improve, reaching a very high accessibility rating, as well as usability on various form factors. This can be used on a desktop, on a kiosk, maybe a tablet style form factor, or on a mobile device, and it will be responsive. It will reflow to whatever screen size the user chooses to work on. A native mobile app, a standalone application, is available for the mobile side as well if your organization would like to have a bit more control over how users are accessing the workplace interface. The dashboard itself has been updated. We're looking at a desktop style view of it here. Our agenda off to the right shows any upcoming space bookings or meetings that we might have, along with the option to check in if we're within our appropriate check-in window. Expanding out the calendar gives us any upcoming bookings that we have, again, for desks and meetings, as well as any bookings we've made on behalf of others. An additional feature that we have here is a team-based calendar view, so I can see anyone who's on my team, where they've booked potentially to sit, so that I can go find them, work with them, book meetings with them more conveniently. My calendar view also allows me to cancel or check in to meetings again if I'm within the permissions, the appropriate time frame that I have for those. Within my Search People and Places interface, a new feature that I have is the ability to print a floor plan. So if I'm looking for an individual here, do a quick search for Adam Miller, I can actually print the floor plan that's associated with this to help me out. If I'm visiting and I'm not sure if I'm going to have service or if I need to share this with somebody else, I can print this more easily. So now your end users have an ability to print floor plans. Additionally, we now have a partnership with a wayfinding provider, so that if you want to give live directions to anyone, either for a booking or for an individual, those can be added to an itinerary, and you can get navigation from within the application. When booking seats, we now have an optional automatic prompt for a previously booked desk. We can also search for any colleagues' future bookings to make sure we're booking nearby if we'd like to work nearby with them. That'll work for your fixed as well. I'm going to take a look, see if I can find Ginger here, where she's working today. And this will give me the option to book nearby. We also have prompts that show intent to come in, meaning the days that we're supposed to be in the office. Those can appear as a reminder for us so that we know when we should be booking for. Jumping back to my technology center here, you'll see that I can see which desks have been booked on this screen as well. So you'll see that they're grayed out, showing unavailable. Hovering any of the desks will show the room name. I have names like Open Workstation here. That's a new feature for us as well. And we can filter by amenities. So I don't like to carry around all my cables and things like that. So I'm going to choose to look for a docking station. And I can see that that'll filter out items that don't match up with what I'm looking for there. One thing that we don't necessarily see here because I'm logged in as a single user, but a new feature is to restrict desk booking to space that's associated with either my team, my department, my assigned building, or other restrictions that I have in place. So I won't actually be able to book outside of the scope that's been made available to me. So if you need to restrict things down for certain users, you can do that. When booking meetings, we have some additional features that have been added to help us find a meeting space as well as control how we are booking. So I'm going to search for where I have some rooms available here. I can search by my room type now if I'd like to filter down to either conference or meeting spaces. I can also filter by the arrangement type, which gives me a way to review the types of setups that I might be able to work with within the rooms that are available to me. As I drill down into booking, I'm given some information about the room itself. I can add attendees, and I can now see whether or not they're available. So these attendees will have a green dot showing that they're available for the time that I've booked. And I can also choose to book private meetings from within Workplace. One other thing that I'll note here is that since version 25, there has been a Google Workspace integration beta introduced. So similar to the currently available Exchange integration that synchronizes with your Outlook, your Exchange calendars, you can achieve the same sort of thing if you're working in a Google Workspace. So if you're interested in signing up for that, that is available now. On the services, the ticketing side of Workplace, the self-service for that, there's been some significant improvements here. We do now get access to maintenance history, including some details that you might choose to make available to the requester. Things like the service history, the comment history, to avoid some of the back and forth that you might have when users need to check up on their requests, the details. So this communications log that you see is a feature that exists now throughout the product. We'll see it in a few different areas, which allows user tagging, notifications, comment threading, all that great stuff. Related to that is actually a notification list, which will show you any recent activity associated with your account. So you can see here some of the comments, some updates as well. The last piece that we're going to look at here that's new is support for questionnaires on service requests. So even though this is a more straightforward interface for your users to submit requests, you can actually get more detail out of them now by asking additional questions. So I'm actually going to submit for a broken outlet, and I can see that there are some specific questions associated with that. Things like, hey, is something plugged in right now? Are there other power outages to be aware of in the area? So overall, Workplace has added a bunch of quality of life and usability features, improved the accessibility, and made it so that your end users can get more value out of the information that you're maintaining, and you in turn can get information back from them in a way that really helps you. On the maintenance and providing services side of things, there have been some significant improvements and additions as well along here. One of the nicest quality of life features here is the universal search, which allows you to find any requests very, very quickly, almost Google style. It'll autocomplete as you're typing. We haven't lost the more detailed filters, but this is a really, really quick way to get to something you're looking for. So example, I have a specific work request number. This is going to narrow in to that. And I can see the details there. I get a summary including those comments. You'll note that there's also been a performance improvement across the whole product, but in some of these consoles in particular. The maintenance console has seen some significant boosts on that front. As we discussed before, we now have unlimited comments as well as unlimited documents. You'll note that I have a number of comments here. Some of them include linked documents or attached documents. We also have that comment tagging that we saw on the Workplace side available from this interface as well. Another great feature that's now available is the ability to work with checklists, which can allow you to collect more detail, ensure that steps are being followed, and get feedback along the way. So I'm just going to grab a request that has a checklist here. There we are. So in this case, this is a plumbing type request that might require some welding. So I have a checklist built out to double check that the permit is in place and has all the appropriate pieces. But these checklists are fully configurable. They can work across a variety of different needs, and you can choose the types of questions. You can even require follow-up for certain types of questions as well. If there's a failure point, for example, on an inspection, that can require a follow-up. So lots of power there, lots of flexibility there, really, really easy to put in place, but a lot of value driven out of those. Another of the great improvements and additions that we have over the past few versions is on-site. It was released a little while ago. Over the past little while, it's been made available more generally and had some features added, performance improvements, some really, really great stuff here. On-site is the mobile maintenance solution for Archibus and the Aptura suite as a whole. So it includes features you'd expect, like push notifications. It does support offline work. So if your team is working in the field and may not have access, either they're in a basement that isn't served, or they're out in the field somewhere that doesn't get cell service, they can still continue to work. The offline synchronization is fully configurable on a case-by-case basis. So you set the rules of what takes priority there. On-site support self-assigning teamwork. So I can review and grab anything from here to assign to myself. Within your tickets, on-site includes a work timer so that you don't need to remember how long you spent working on something. You can actually keep track of that time from the app. So we can use the timer down below here. On-site also has access to the comments and tagging as well that you saw on Workplace and on the desktop maintenance, as well as access to the checklists that we saw, so you can actually complete these checklists, update them on in the field. There's lots more to on-site. The last thing that I wanted to highlight here is a completion data prompt. So this is a configurable set of prompts. You can see I have 3 pages here that I've chosen to show that ensures that all of the appropriate information is tracked on completion of a work request. Still related to your assets, but also somewhat related to your space. Archibus now includes a BIM viewer, and this is a connection to your 3D modeling, your Revit information if you have it in Construction Cloud. This will allow you to leverage those visualizations in a really simple interface that doesn't require any special Revit expertise, while overlaying your Archibus asset maintenance space information and allowing you to work with some of that in a live way. So this is a very powerful tool. Allows you to take a look at a lot of great stuff. I'm going to actually work by system to start with, and we'll take a look at our nanotechnology buildings HVAC system. So we can see that get zoomed in and highlighted for us within the building. This is great for working through work requests and understanding connectivity, where there's going to be downtime, or who's going to be impacted. In fact, we can actually review what space is served by particular assets in the view. So we can actually highlight rooms served by that asset, and we can see where those are in the model. Jumping across to a more maintenance focus, we can review the active work we might have on different assets, helpful if we want to get certain things done while we're in a location. We can also change up our highlights and maybe understand if there have been any diagnostic triggers against any of these assets over the past little while. Not only can we review what's going on, we can actually drill down and take action. So I can review the details for a given asset, including things like warranty information. And then I can also create new work requests. So if I'm walking through a building and I want to use this to locate an asset and report an issue, I can do that from here as well. So this allows you to review your PM schedules, any key performance indicators, report and work with Revit information in a really intuitive, user-friendly way. Moving a little deeper into the space conversation, there have been a lot of improvements to the space area, particularly on the space console. Again, we've seen performance improvements here. We also have some quality of life improvements. The same sort of universal search is available, as well as some additional search modes specific to what the space console likes to do. For example, I can search for an employee. And choosing them, I'm going to get a quick zoom of the floor plan, highlighting where they're located. We also now have drag and drop on employee names, so I can actually move Ginger along just like that. And we can also include department name highlights, labels on the console. So not only will we get codes, but we can also get names to make it a little easier to find that information. As we kind of accommodate hybrid and more remote working, Understanding space utilization can be very important. So right from the Space Console, you now have the ability to review your utilization and trends. I'm going to clear things out and look at my whole portfolio, and I can understand where I have workspace bookings. I can understand where I have meeting bookings. I can understand where I have fixed occupancy and how those all interact with each other to give me an overall perspective of my utilization. In addition to the Space Console, we now have a view and print floor plan interface, which is really much simpler perspective, similar to the Space Console, but without a lot of the management update features. This is primarily a reporting tool that we can provide to end users who may still have value in seeing the floor plans, being able to print the floor plans, taking a look at some of that highlighting information, but who don't need to make changes or get into some of the detailed analytics that the Space Console provides. So as an example here, I might take a look at a shared space and I might want to understand the hotelable space. This might be something I would print and post for people to come in and book desks. Now, this is not particularly intuitive as it is because it's just a bunch of shapes, but I can also include additional layers, for example, my furniture and equipment that might give a bit more insight for those who are coming in into what type of space is available for them there. So just a few clicks, very simple interface, but provides power to users who wouldn't otherwise get access to some of this information. On the Lease front, we've seen some improvements to automation as well as configurability to make it work a little bit more easily for your specific needs. We've seen that leases is one area where flexibility becomes very important, so that's been addressed over the past few versions. One feature that we have now is bulk renewal, so you'll note that I can check off and renew multiple leases at once. I'm actually going to drill down into a single lease here, where I can actually choose what fields are visible. So I can choose from a great selection of standard fields to display and provide access to work with my lease in a way that actually suits my organization more than the generic approach. So this is available right in the console to make that change. A similar conversation comes up on the template front. You may require different information from different types of leases that you're working with. So when you create these lease templates that allow you to reuse data or structures, you can actually now specify which of these are mandatory fields in your lease template. So you see that I already had some that were mandatory. I can add additional mandatory fields to my template. Moving on to discussion about integrations. Over the past few years, working within the ecosystem has become a significant priority, and Aptura has worked to achieve that within Archibus and the larger offering. One of the key integrations that we've seen now is a connection within actually the Aptura platform to Aptura Visitor, which allows you to connect meeting bookings and visits that you might have in Archibus through Workplace to the Aptura Visitor interface that allows you to automate the check-in process, ensure that reception and any hosts are notified, people are provided the right information. So right from the mobile device, you can ask them whatever questions you might like. For example, where are you visiting? And you can provide information like confidentiality agreements. So this also allows you to connect to your access control systems to ensure that your whole security workflow is followed from the booking of a meeting through to the actual occurrence of the meeting and tracking that data to the future. A key integration point is API integrations, and that's continued to be extended and added to, along with examples that have been provided to make it easier to get off the ground using those connections and connect with some standard interfaces. For example, Power BI, which is a relatively common business intelligence tool, something that is either standard at a lot of organizations or that organizations have existing expertise with. Archibus now ships with sample connections and sample reports that you can use to leverage your Power BI reporting expertise along with your Archibus data and any other data that you might have connected to Power BI. So this example is showing us in Power BI an overall replacement cost based on the type of asset or equipment that we have. Looking at a pie chart, we also have different visualizations, different analyses that we can provide within Power BI. So really great extension of the connectivity there. On the side of collecting data, you may have noticed on the BIM viewer that we had a report tracking diagnostics against some of our assets. These diagnostics are often automated by either a meter reading, a sensor, or some other measurement that's going on within the tool itself. These can be collected automatically, brought into Archibus and analyzed, reported on, and even can be used to automatically generate work based on problems that we sense or opportunities that we might see to improve before things become a problem. So we can see here a history of our diagnostics, as well as down below a detail of those problems, those opportunities. It's a partnership with Clockworks, a building management, building automation suite that makes this really, really straightforward, but this is generally agnostic, similar to other integrations that you have in Archibus if you have another building automation system. Speaking of sensors, and we spoke about utilization a little bit earlier, one of the key ways that sensors can add value today is understanding how our space is actually being used. So again, we have partnerships now with a few different sensor manufacturers, but working agnostically, we can bring in sensor data, whatever that might be, whether it be visual sensors, IP-based sensors, badge swipes, and give you an understanding of the true utilization. So this is something that's available now in current versions. We're looking at a heat map showing that I have, high utilization up in the corner and then very low utilization across the rest of this floor. Maybe that's the sunny corner that stays a little warmer through the day. So to wrap things up, this was just a sample of what's new. Obviously, there have been a number of versions since the last version 25 minor release. So there's a lot more available to dig into. If you're interested in a specific feature, specific functional area, please do reach out and we'll be able to walk you through what else might be relevant to your specific case. But I wanted to touch on the highlights, some of the really big new features, new components to the tool, and some things that have been commonly requested over the past little while that have been implemented. As always, please reach out if you have any questions or any feedback, and thank you.